I also hope that you are having an amazing day so far. Today, we will be doing our advanced writing and we will be focusing on pronoun, appropriate pronoun shifts, right? So, we will be talking about, or let's say, focusing on a lesson called appropriate pronoun shifts. So, even though you maybe haven't heard about appropriate pronoun shifts, but we will definitely go over what appropriate pronoun shifts is, since the word pronoun is basically something that we are more familiar with. So this is advanced writing. So whenever we do advanced writing, we try to go deeper into ways of writing, right? Or ways of perfecting our writing. So our chapter for today, like we said, is advanced writing, and our chapter is inappropriate pronoun shifts. So if we make mention of the word inappropriate, then it means that it is not appropriate. It should not happen. You should not do it, right? So inappropriate pronoun shifts, that is a chapter. We are doing the subject of English, which is language arts, grade 8. And our lessons that we will be focusing on is to correct inappropriate pronoun number and person. In pronoun number and person. And before we start, we are going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged into aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we are going to select the subject of language arts. And then grade 8. And once we've selected the subject of language arts, grade 8, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of inappropriate pronoun shifts. And we said our lesson for today is to correct inappropriate shifts in pronoun, number, and person. And we're going to find out what that means today. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So even after this lesson, if you want to go back, recap, go over the lesson, and then you may do so on aplusstudents.ca. We have the chapter, which is inappropriate pronoun shifts, the subject, which is English language arts, grade 8, and the lesson, which is to correct inappropriate in pronoun number and person. Yes, it's inappropriate shift. Correct inappropriate shifts. I've been wondering. Shifts in pronoun number and person. All right, so when it comes to a pronoun, right? Remember, a pronoun takes the place of a noun, or it takes the place of nouns, right? And the pronoun must agree with the antecedent in number and in person, right? So when we are either writing, then your pronoun must agree with your antecedent in number and in person, since we almost are doing the lesson of inappropriate shifts in pronoun number and person. So once again, a pronoun must agree with with your antecedent in number and person. And when it comes to inappropriate pronoun shifts, right? Do not shift a person within a sentence, meaning that if, for example, we use a specific pronoun, right, then do not add a pronoun that is not appropriate to which you are actually referring to. Because remember, we said that the pronoun, it takes the place of a noun, right? So if you shift in a person or a thing within a sentence and it is not correct, then it means that it is inappropriate. In particular, do not use second person pronoun you or your to refer to a person or to refer to a first person or third person antecedent. And an example is in these sentences, for example, boys. So in the sentence, boys was shifted incorrectly to he, right? So he should be they, with jacket becoming jackets. So it's almost like if the boy is with others, right? And then of course we cannot just say he or he's, right? We need to then say either they or them, depending. Because now it is being shifted. So now if you just say he because you're only referring to the boy, then that is going to be incorrect, right? And remember also we certain plural words, right? It changes where we add an s, especially if we are referring to, let's say, one person. So pronoun shifts, right? Pronouns must match in number and pronouns must match in person. For example, the Supreme Court has decided that it will meet. They did not say the judge has decided, right? So if they say the Supreme Court, then we use the pronoun it will meet because we did not specifically refer to someone which is either male or female. If we had to say Judge Mathis has decided, right? Then we will say Judge Mathis has decided that she or he will meet, right? But if we say, for example, the Supreme Court, right, referring to a body, and then we say, we use the pronoun it will meet. If we look at the pronouns in the sentence, right, you must study hard if you want to get good grades. You can't say, you must study hard if I want to get good grades, right? So you use you twice, even if it means that you might feel it's inappropriate, but it is correct. And that is pronoun shifts. So it becomes inappropriate, or we call it inappropriate pronoun shifts, once you shift in a specific pronoun that does not belong. All right, so when it comes to our pronoun rules, right? So when it comes to our pronoun rules, then your pronouns must agree in person. So the pronouns, they must agree in person. Do not confuse your reader by switching points of view, right? Meaning that confusing what can be confusing is when you, for example, say I never ride roller coasters because they make you throw up, right? So just look at these two words. This is confusing. Yeah, you're referring to I, which is the person that is saying this, but now you are referring to someone else, right? So that is confusing and it is not clear. And that is why we call it inappropriate pronoun shifts. So I never ride roller coasters because they make you throw up, right? So you are supposed to speak in first person. So not you, but then it should make me throw up because I'm referring to me, right? You cannot refer to you and then shift it to someone else. And that is what we mean when we speak about pronoun shifts. You're referring to one person, but you're shifting it to the other. So that makes it confusing because now it's like, who actually throws up? Is it me or is it the next person, right? So yeah, we basically show the first person, like I just mentioned. So I is first person, right? And you is second person. So you spoke in first person, but then you afterwards made mention of the second person, which is incorrect and confusing and inappropriate. But the clear and logical way to write the pronoun, right, is to say, I never ride roller coasters because they make me throw up, right? It is not being shifted to the next person. It makes me throw up. All right. So we said that our lesson is on aplusstudents.ca, right? So let's go to our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So we're going into our lesson to correct inappropriate shifts in pronoun, number, and person. So pronouns they must agree with the antecedents in number and in person, right? So it says do not use a plural pronoun for a singular antecedent, right? It's the same like I was also making mention early on about you cannot shift it. If you say when I ride roller coasters, it makes you throw up, right? We cannot do that, right? So we cannot use that type of plurals, right? Or we cannot use that type of pronouns. So it says, do not use a plural pronoun for a singular antecedent or a singular pronoun for a plural antecedent, right? Because it needs to be singular antecedents for singular plurals, and then it needs to be singular antecedents for a singular pronoun and a plural pronoun for a plural antecedent. And we said that it needs to agree. So your pronoun needs to agree with your antecedent in both number as well as in person. And if we make an example, right, then it says a sea urchin has long, sharp spine all over their body. Remember when it comes to animals and things, right? Then we use its or it, right? So we use it or its. We most likely use, for example, there or they or he or she. We use it. So which means that if we are making mention of A sea urchin, which is in the water, right? Then we specifically says that its body, right? Not their body. We refer to their bodies when we are talking about a human. Do not shift person within a sentence. In particular, do not use second person pronouns you or your to refer to the first person or third person antecedent. And that is the example that we made earlier on where you said that I go on the roller coaster or I don't go on the roller coaster because you feel like vomiting or feel like throwing up, right? That is using first person within a sentence, right? But you are then shifting it to the second person pronoun. And also an example is at the school, students, right? Students refer to more than one student, which is plural. They need to take at least 3 English classes before they graduate. And as you can see, you have been removed because you cannot refer to students as plural and then you make mention of a singular pronoun. And this is why we call inappropriate pronoun shifts because your plural, right, needs to also have a plural pronoun. It cannot be plural noun or plural pronoun with a singular pronoun. And when you don't know the gender of a singular antecedent, you may pick one gender or use both. It's like his or her, right? So, say for example, we are talking about the judge, right? But they did not say who the judge is. They just said the judge is going to do his ruling. We cannot just assume that the judge is a male, right? So here they're saying when you don't know the gender for a singular antecedent, you may pick one gender or use both. For example, a chemist will often design his own experiments, or a chemist will often design her own experience. Or what you can basically just do is say a chemist will often design his or her own experience. And that's the same example that I made about the judge. If you are making mention of the judge that needs to do his ruling, but you don't know the gender of the judge, and then you can either say the judge will make his or her ruling tomorrow. So you can basically either pick a gender or you can basically use both. And they're giving us an example. All right. If we look at this question over here, it says find the inappropriate pronoun and type it correctly. Pilots should carefully check every control in the cockpit before you request permission for takeoff. So basically, the inappropriate pronoun that we can identify is you, right? You. Because here it says pilots should carefully check every control in the cockpit before you request permission for takeoff. right? Remember, they ask permission for takeoff. So we can say that pilots should carefully check every control in the cockpit before they request permission for takeoff. Because remember, we don't request permission for takeoff. We go to the airport, we get on the airplane at our designated time, and then we just wait for takeoff. So pilots should carefully check every control in the cockpit before they request permission for takeoff, not you. All right. Now we need to find the incorrect pronoun again and type it correctly. It's important for the members of any committee or team to communicate well as a group so you can work together effectively. So it is important for the members of any community or team to communicate well as a group, so that they can work together effectively. Right? So here they're saying that the pronoun you, which we have underlined, is incorrect, right? And its antecedent, right, which is the members of the community or team, is in third person. So which means that the pronoun should then be in third person also. So then we change you to they, which is correct. Right? So it is important for the members of any committee or team to communicate well as a group so they can work together effectively. So they is our correct pronoun. All right. We are going to find the incorrect pronoun and type it correctly. A career in journalism can be incredibly rewarding despite its demands. News correspondents may not enjoy the long hours and frequent travel, but you, oopsie, but you get the satisfaction of bringing groundbreaking stories to the public. So we have already found the inappropriate pronoun and we are going to type it correctly. So it says a career in journalism, right, can be incredibly rewarding despite its demands. News correspondence refers to more than one, right? That is our antecedent. Let me underline it. This is our antecedent, which is news correspondence, right? May not enjoy the long hours and frequent travel, but we can say they, which refers to the news correspondence, but they and the journalists, right? they get the satisfaction of bringing groundbreaking stories to the public. So we basically found our inappropriate pronoun, which is you, and we corrected it, or we typed it correctly with its correct pronoun, which is they. All right. Let's go to our test. We need to find the inappropriate pronoun and type it correctly. It's important for the members of any committee or team to communicate well as a group so you can work together effectively, right? So the word you, we need to change that word, right? Because that is our inappropriate or incorrect pronoun, right? Because you cannot say you for the members of the committee. So the members of the committee or team, right, that is our antecedent, right? So you is then it's an inappropriate or incorrect pronoun. So if we select the correct pronoun, right, that refers to the team or the members of the community, and then we can say it is they. So it's important for the members of any community or team to communicate well as a group so they can work together effectively, not you. And they is correct. So you now need to find the inappropriate pronoun. Although cougars generally prefer to live in areas with dense vegetation, it can also be found in wide open spaces. So although cougars generally prefer to live in areas with dense vegetation, it can also be found in wide open spaces. So cougars, we need to find the inappropriate or incorrect pronoun, and then we need to type it correctly. So cougars, right, is of course an animal, right? It's a mammal. And they say although cougars generally prefer to live in areas with dense vegetation, it can also be found in wide open spaces. Yeah, they're saying that we need to find the inappropriate pronoun, right? So if we were to find the inappropriate pronoun, it would be it. However, because it usually refers to animals, right? But now we only have they and it. Let's quickly see. This is a try. Yes, so basically they can also, so they is the correct word. Sometimes it can be very tricky, especially when it comes to animals, right? Because usually we refer to animals as it, right? Pilots should carefully check every control in the cockpit before you request permission for takeoff. You. So if we select the or find the inappropriate pronoun, and then our inappropriate pronoun would be you. And if we fix you or type it correctly, then we will say it is they, because they refer to the pilots. So pilots should carefully check every control in the control or in the cockpit before they request permission for takeoff. Before they request permission for takeoff. So we need to find the inappropriate pronoun. And then we need to type it correctly. A jury member has the grave responsibility of deciding a defendant's innocence or guilt. So they must carefully consider all the evidence before casting a vote. And if we select or find the inappropriate pronoun, it will be they over here. Because here they're saying a jury member. So they're saying a jury member, which refers to one person, has grave responsibility of deciding a defendant's innocence or guilt. So they, cannot be they, must carefully consider all evidence before casting a vote. Remember, they said earlier on in our tutorial lesson that if you don't know the gender of a specific person, and then you can either type he, or you can write she, or you can write he or she. So in this case, we will say he or she, because we do not know the gender of the jury member. A career in journalism can be incredibly rewarding despite its demands. News correspondents may not enjoy the long hours and frequent travel, but you get the satisfaction of bringing groundbreaking stories to the public. So, a career in journalism can be incredibly rewarding despite its demands. And the news correspondents may not even enjoy the long hours and the frequent travel, but we can say they, which refers to the career, like let's say basically the journalists or the news anchors, but they get the satisfaction of bringing groundbreaking stories to the public. So they, and they refers to the news correspondents or the journalists, right? They, not you, because they specifically say news correspondents, and that is plural, and they is correct. When people visit the Louvre in Paris, he or she can see Leonardo da Vinci's most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. So when people visit the Louvre in Paris, he or she oopsie, he or she can see Leonardo da Vinci's most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. So he or she, right, is removed because they're saying when people, right, and he or she refers to singular person. People refers to plural, more than one. He or she refers to one. So when people visit the Louvre in Paris, they can see Leonardo da Vinci's most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. So we said they, and they is correct. And then when a tailor cuts and measures fabric, so when a tailor cuts and measures fabric, you must leave extra room for the hem. So when a tailor cuts and measures fabric, you're going to, so when a tailor cuts and measures fabric, you must leave extra room for the him. So we need to change the word you and put he or she because you, so we can say he or she because we don't know if the tailor is male or female. And then in the United States, a person accused of a crime should be considered innocent until a judge or jury finds them guilty. So we say that in the United States, a person accused of crime should be considered innocent until the judge or jury finds him or her guilty. Because they're saying a person. So it refers to either him or it refers to her. And in people with positive attitudes, they tend to be more successful in life because you are more likely to focus on solutions rather than problems. So we need to change that word you to they because they are more likely to focus on solutions rather than problems. So they is correct. And then the narrator of a television show or radio program should have a calm voice and they should pronounce words clearly. So we say that the narrator of a television show or radio program should have a calm voice and they should pronounce word clearly. This is where pronouncing, pronunciation, and articulation comes in. So the narrator of the show. So we say he or she. Because here they're saying the narrator of the television and here they're saying they should. So it is he or she. Because we don't know if it is male, we don't know if it's female, but all we know it is that it is referring to one person, like a singular form. And to be successful, a professional photographer should have a high quality camera. And he or she must have good eye for interesting angles. So he or she is our appropriate or correct pronoun. So it's important for the members of any community or team to communicate well as a group so you can work together effectively. So we say it's important for the members, which refers to more than one, of any community or committee or team to communicate well as a group so they can work together effectively. So they can work together effectively. It says members of the community. All right. So it's he or she. So candidates for the job will make a good impression if you are knowledgeable about the company's products and services. So definitely not you. So candidates for the job will make a good impression if they are knowledgeable. So they. And then pilots should carefully check every control in the cockpit before you request permission to take off, before they refer request permission for takeoff. Before it requests. All right. But that's basically the same sentence as to what we did earlier on, the very same. All right, we're doing the last one and then we are done with our lesson on inappropriate pronoun shifts. So a jury member has the grave responsibility of deciding a defendant's innocence or guilt. So they must carefully consider all the evidence before casting a vote. So any jury member has the grave responsibility of deciding a defendant's innocence or guilt. So he or she must consider all the evidence before casting a vote. So he or she. All right, grade 8. This is now the end of our lesson on inappropriate pronoun shifts, right? And we said inappropriate pronoun shifts is it's when your pronoun does not agree with your antecedent, right? So your pronoun and antecedent needs to agree, right? If you are making mention, or if the noun is, for example, plural, and then your pronoun needs to be plural too, as well as your antecedent, right? Inappropriate pronoun shifts is when we, for example, speak in first person, but we end up using third person voice. So this is the end of our lesson, grade 8, on inappropriate pronoun shift. Thank you for joining the class, and you should have a good day further. Goodbye.